The Maker Signal with Benjamin Lyles.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Maker Signal. I'm Benjamin Lyles, and today we're talking about Christmas, which means lights, trees, music, food, presents, family, travel, maybe even going to the movies. Somebody somewhere trying to untangle a string of lights that apparently formed a legal partnership with itself sometime last January. All of that. And I like Christmas. I love the Christmas music. I really do. There's something about the season that just feels different. That says, I made it through this year, even though it was a massive bull or a bear in the pants. But today I want to talk about something underneath all of that. Because eventually, if you're a Christian, you have to ask, why Christmas? Why does the birth of Jesus matter? Why is this such a central part of our faith? And why are we still talking about a child born more than 2,000 years ago? That's what I want to get into today. Christmas is probably one of the easiest Christian holidays for people to enjoy culturally. Even people who aren't particularly religious can enjoy Christmas. The music, the decorations, the traditions, the movies, the food, the feeling of it. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying those things. I certainly do. But the danger is that Christmas can become so familiar that we stop thinking about what it actually means. We know the story: Mary, Joseph, Bethlehem, the manger, the shepherds, the angels, the wise men. We've heard it so many times that it can start feeling almost like background music. You know, you're riding an elevator and you have that elevator music. I digress. But if you stop and think about what Christians actually believe happened there, it's enormous. This is probably the part that connects most directly to the Maker Signal for me. I spend a lot of time talking about making things: music, books, software, ideas, creative work. And one of the things I keep coming back to is the idea of the maker and the thing that is made. But Christianity makes an extraordinary claim. It says that the Maker entered his own creation, that God did not remain distant. He came here. He came close. In the words of Matthew, he was Emmanuel, God with us. Not as a king arriving with an army, not in some overwhelming display of power, but as a child, as a baby, an infant. This is strange and beautiful. And honestly, if you've heard it your whole life, I think it's easy to forget just how surprising that idea actually is. That may be the simplest way I know how to say it. Christmas means God came close. Emmanuel. He entered human life. He experienced hunger, tiredness, friendship, grief, pain, joy, loss. He lived among people, and that matters because Christianity is not simply the story of humans trying to reach God. It's also the story of God reaching us, and that changes everything. I'm going to take a moment here and use the backdrop of Jesus' life for what he says in Luke 15. In Luke 15, he talks about two boys. One goes his own way and becomes the prodigal. The other one stays and helps his father. Now, if anybody has ever paid attention to the parables of Christ, he talks a lot about being found. Uh, right after the prodigal son, he opens that meaning up just a little more about a widow who finds a maybe it's a denarii, maybe it's 2 cents under the couch, but she finds it because it was lost to her. And he goes a little bit further and says, it's it's like losing something that matters to you. And when you find out where it is, you rejoice over it. So going back to the prodigal son story, the prodigal son, he lost his way. He went his own way. He spent his inheritance rather poorly. And he didn't just naturally start thinking, maybe I should go home, I've lost everything. He sticks. He wallows in the pigsty a little bit, thinking if I go home, I'm such a failure. Eventually, he just gets to that rock bottom point where he's just like, you know what? At least at home, I was cared for. I was. I had my dad. I had my brother. Even though my brother's a pain in the neck to me, and he just starts going home. And as he's walking home, maybe he has his head down and he's not looking up, but his dad just looks up and sees his son coming home. He knows the footsteps of his prodigal son, and he's just so overcome with thankfulness and gratitude that his son is alive, and he runs. He doesn't walk to his son, he runs full force for his missing kid. That's what God did when he sent Jesus Christ in the form of a child into the manger. He was putting himself so close to us so that when we come to his son, he's effectively saying, now I found you. I've got you. Put your burdens on me, because when you do, I will give you peace. I will give you rest. That makes up the point of it's also the story of God reaching us, and that changes everything. And I think the fact that Jesus came as a baby matters too, because babies are vulnerable. They need care. They need protection. They need people. That is not the way we usually imagine power. We imagine power as control, strength, dominance. But Christmas gives us this completely different picture. God enters the world in humility. No throne, no palace, no political power, a manger. That says something about the character of God, and it says something about what he values. Sometimes we treat Christmas like a complete story. A baby is born, everybody celebrates, end. But Christmas is really the beginning. You cannot separate the manger from the rest of the story. Jesus grows, he teaches, he heals, he confronts, he loves people, he dies, he rises. So Christmas matters because of where this story is going. The birth matters because of who the child is. And that's the center of it. And I think this is important. The Christmas story is beautiful, but it is not merely sentimental. It's not just, look at the baby in the manger. So cute, so precious. Ooh, aren't you a cute thing? The Christian claim is much bigger. This child is the Christ child, the Messiah of the Jewish people. This is God entering human history. This is salvation beginning to unfold in a way nobody would have expected. That makes Christmas less like a cozy postcard and more like the opening of the most important story Christians believe has ever happened. One thing I really like about Christmas is how quietly it begins. Think about it. Most of the world had no idea anything had happened. People were going about their lives, working, sleeping, worrying, traveling, arguing, living. And meanwhile, in a small place most people weren't paying attention to. Like, let's say Bethlehem is like Burnett is to the hill country. Austin's part of the hill country. Let's say that in terms of Jerusalem, Bethlehem would have been like the Burnett to Austin. It would have been a bit of ways off. It would have been rural, very pastoral. Meanwhile, and so, you know, it's a place most people weren't paying attention to. Something world changing happened. I think there's something encouraging in that. Important things do not always begin loudly. Sometimes hope arrives quietly. Sometimes change begins in a place nobody is watching. Sometimes something small becomes much bigger than anybody understood at the time. That sounds familiar to creators too, honestly. A lot of meaningful things begin small. We tend to want obvious signs, big moments, something undeniable, something dramatic, and yet Christmas gives us a baby. That's almost the opposite of what people would expect. And I think faith often works that way. We want God to do something enormous. And sometimes He starts something small, something that requires patience, attention, trust. I also think it's important to say this because Christmas is not easy for everybody. For some people, this season is joyful. For others, it's complicated. Maybe somebody is missing. Maybe a relationship changed. Maybe this is the first Christmas after a loss. It was for me in 2021. Maybe family is difficult. Maybe money is tight. Maybe somebody is lonely. And I think sometimes Christmas culture makes people feel like they're failing if they aren't cheerful enough. I don't believe that. You are allowed to feel what you feel. The message of Christmas is not pretend everything is fine. The message is that God entered a broken world. That means Christmas actually has room for pain. It has room for grief. It has room for people who are tired. It has room for people who are still trying to find hope. And that distinction matters. Hope is not pretending the darkness is not there. Hope is believing darkness does not get the final word. That is a very different thing. And that's what Christmas means to me. God entered the darkness. He didn't avoid it. He came into it. That is why Christmas can still mean something when life is not perfect. Maybe especially then. So if Christmas means God came close, what do we do with that? For me, it means I should probably care about being close to people too. It means love should become practical, not just something I say. If somebody is lonely, notice them. If somebody is hurting, listen, maybe hurt with them. If somebody needs help, help. If somebody has been good to you, tell them. Christmas is not just about receiving, it's about giving. And not only gifts, but of time, but of attention, but grace, but patience and forgiveness. Sometimes those are much harder to give. Traditions are good. I like traditions. But sometimes we get so focused on making Christmas happen that we miss the people we're supposedly making it for. Oof. Sneezy. My cat sneezed. Pardon us. The food has to be right. The house has to look right. The schedule has to work. The presents have to be perfect. And meanwhile, everybody is stressed. That may be a sign we've lost the plot a little bit. The people matter more than the production. That's probably true of a lot of things. This is one of those episodes where I'd really like people to answer, what does Christmas mean to you? Not just, what do you do? What does it mean? Maybe for you it means family. Maybe worship. Maybe remembrance. Maybe hope. Maybe something you're still trying to understand. I think those answers can be really different, and I'd be curious to hear them. Give me a second, guys. I'm reading for a moment. Um, okay. So, Christmas, for me personally, I previously said that I am hugely grateful for my church, for the family that I have at my church. They're not simply just by and large maybe distant relatives by any chance or stretch of the imagination. Churches exist as an extension of your physical family, and they can become very much family, especially if you lose your sister, your mother, your father, maybe your grandmother, maybe your grandfather, or your aunt and uncle and your cousins. Maybe church for you during Christmas time is your family. So Christmas, personally, to me, is about people drawing close to one another. To one another. God came close to us as a baby in a manger, whose life was planned out by God, not to usher in this earthly, powerful reign, not just yet. And I'm saying that for a reason. Because what most people think should happen isn't what actually happens. Maybe the reason why God allowed for a child to be born, for him to draw close to people, was to find that which was lost and to restore them, even if they should physically die, so that by the time that the ultimate sacrifice is given, that somebody's life is taken, it makes that next moment all the more surreal. Because when Christ gave up his life on the cross, he brought those people that he had brought, who he had healed. He was bridging that gap yet again. First off, God gave us Christ as a child, as him drawing near to us, entering into our pain, clothing us with his divinity, drawing close to us to restore us. So now Christ is on the cross. He is bringing every single one that he has fully restored. Everybody who believes in Jesus, they're waiting to see what he does on that cross. So maybe those final 3 words he utters on the cross, "It is finished," maybe that's not just a fulfillment of Scripture where he gives up his life. Maybe he's saying it is finished because the restoration of the people to God that he had inserted himself alongside. We're told that Mary, his mom, was at the cross. Maybe another Mary was there at the cross. We know for sure that John, his very beloved disciple, was there. So all 3 women were there witnessing what happened at the cross. Maybe what Christ was meaning by "it is finished" before he gave up his spirit, maybe what he meant by "it is finished" wasn't just the fact that he was fulfilling Scripture. Maybe it's the fact that after God had inserted himself, Emmanuel, God with us, into the manger, but maybe that whole "it is finished" dialogue that he uttered was about bringing that same people back to God. They're fully restored. Because the next thing we're told, a great earthquake happens and the temple veil is just torn in two. I mean, it could have been split from top to bottom, so the veil just ended up parting on its own, or it got completely cut in half horizontally, so that the bottom portion, who knows what really happened? We don't know. I don't know. But we now have access to the Holy of Holies because Christ paid that sacrifice after restoring humanity back to a God who never wanted humanity separated from him. Think about Christmas in that sense. And I want to come back to something I said earlier. I call this show the Maker's Signal. I spend a lot of time talking about creators, but Christmas reminds me that I'm not only a maker, I'm also made. David said in one of his psalms, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Before I was born, you knew me. And the Christian story says that the one who made us did not abandon what he made. He entered it. He came close. That's why Christmas matters to me. Not because of the lights, not because of the gifts, not because of the songs. I enjoy all of those things, but they're not the center. Christ is. So, why Christmas? Because Christians believe God came near. Because hope entered the world. Because the Maker entered his creation. Because the story of Jesus begins here. And because the manger points forward to everything that follows. So enjoy Christmas. Enjoy the lights. Enjoy the food. Give somebody a gift. And if you can't give them a physical gift, give them a hug. Give them a smile. Give them thanks. Give them gratefulness. Let them know that they matter because Christ matters to us. And God says that what matters to him should also matter to us. Watch the movie you've seen 15 times. Or if it's a movie about a cute shepherd boy, yes, I'm referring to David the movie from last year. It came out pretty close to Christmas. Watch it. Eat the cookie. I'm not going to stop you, but somewhere in the middle of it, remember why. Remember Christ. Remember the humility of the manger. Remember the hope. And remember that Christmas is not ultimately about what we give each other. It's about what God gave us. I'm Benjamin Lyles. This is the Maker Signal. Faith, creativity, technology. Making what matters. Merry Christmas, everybody. And I'll see you in the next one.